Welcome to week 6 of devSchool, TypeScript, JavaScript, devSchool. Hopefully you're on the Slack community or are viewing the Hangout, viewing the syllabus as well. So we're on week 6, so if you can navigate in the syllabus to week 6, you'll see the resources that we have. So, can other folks hop in if they want to?
Did you send Medica an invite?
Yeah,
she did.
I'll get you again.
And if you're on the Slack community, just give a shout out, please.
Does anybody want to share some code from last week?
Any questions from last week? I think we had a very useful assignment.
Hey, what was the assignment?
It was just finishing function. I think ultimately we were writing back to the sheet.
But one of them was like transposing the data.
Yeah.
Like, were you guys able to do that? That's kind of tricky.
We wish you could continue with the transforming the data wide or long.
Yeah, so what I was thinking for today, let's start with that. And then this week's material talked again about objects, constructing them, and that we do just with that, and then something passing some parameters into a function. So something that was earlier, something that touched on really last week, but it's not something that use a lot. And then finally, I think we could work through going through a function that is like a status column, and it only runs the function if the status is empty, which is how the majority of our page
Sounds good.
Jared, do you want to go through transposing, or do you want to? I think so. I copied the link in the syllabus is just extending on what we did last week. So to make a copy, we'll have everything we did last week, or otherwise you can just access your previous one.
I'm happy to show it.
I can also.
My dock is struggling to load. I'm just trying to find.
That's not a gallery.
Okay, I think it's.
I can.
Where we share this.
Alright, you want to share your screen?
Yes.
Do you also want to see my screen?
Okay. At this point, you guys see my screen? I'm competing with the ice cream truck, which is always difficult. Okay, so this can also be accessed through the link under week 6 today, or week 5. It's the same document. So let's just get caught up. We're in the help document. Let's actually go through and build it ourselves. So let's see what we were looking at. I'm going to just debug this function. Your name is not defined. No, you're not. Okay. So let's review what we were doing. We're pulling in the data from week 1. And as of now, we were saying if attendance was less than 90, we were going to push into this array. So each row, we have this. Okay. So we want to push into the array we created, which was student attendance. So now I anticipate we're going to pull back the data as we loop through, and only if attendance is less than 90 will we be pushing in student name. Are you guys able to see?
Click on Chris. You can also get rid of that. Click none. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. It's still pretty small, but.
So we've got our array. I am still inside this I loop, so that's why we only have one. Does anyone remember from our previous week, we kind of had this where we were debugging. I think Amy was when you were showing your work, and we saw that what we're seeing right now was happening. What's a good hint we can look at to see how far we've iterated through the data?
Well, run the debugger and then see in the object what it's actually viewing, and if it's blank, odds are it means that you need to put the debugger somewhere further on down in the scope.
Yeah.
So I is in the debugger and I is at 0 right now.
Exactly. Okay, so those two answers combined are lovely. Looking at where we are right now based on our debugger, we can see, as Dimitri said, that we're pushing into this array, student attendance, and when I go to expand it, right now there's only one value. And then, so we know that we're kind of stuck in the middle, or stuck right at the beginning of our I loop, and then as Menika said, you also want to look at I. So this is our queue. Right now we're starting when I equals 0. If we iterate through again, so I'm just going to continue the debugger. Now we're up to I has increased by 1, I equals 1, and we're pushing, both these students have attendance that's less than 90, so they're pushing into the array. Awesome. So I'm just going to carry this down 1 and debug again, just so we get our full array. And there we have it. And we can tell that I is up to 10, which is the max that we set, the data.length. Okay, so now we have in our array, and our goal, let's write it back to the sheet, both vertically and horizontally. Can anyone remind us, how do we write back to the sheet? What do we need to find?
So we need to have the sheet defined and the range defined, and the data that defined, and then we use a push dot, and then the data. No, sorry. It's we write to the range, but so we set the values as, and within the set value, we have the array that we want to write to that range.
Exactly. So we start big picture, we narrow in. So we know, as Eric said, we know our spreadsheet, our sheet. We now need to identify the range where we're going to write to, and then the method we call for this is set values. And as Eric said, we've got our data array already. Those are the student names, so those are the values we'll set.
And the tricky piece is just that in order to set values, like the range you get needs to match the size, this shape of the data that you're trying to write. So that's just important.
It's very particular. Okay, so let's say for our, let's call this range to set. bless you, because we already have range defined up above. At this point, it would just overwrite that variable, but we want to be able to see both in our debugger. So who can kind of, what's the first thing I need to point to for the range method?
Sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Dot get range.
Stellar. Okay. And then we will pop in. So it's expecting these 4 parameters. Where do we want to, and I didn't really define this in the task. And this is curious because we're not writing it for every student. So maybe let's set it here. Students below 90. So I'm just choosing a really random column right now. So we're going to want it in row 2. Actually, what column is H? Column 8. Okay. So row 2, column 8. Okay, so how many rows do we want this to be? For this one, we're going to set it vertically. What's a dynamic way to identify the count of rows for our array?
Get last row?
So get last row is going to get the last row on the sheet. And so if our values were for every student, that would work. Yes, length on what?
Would be the length on the array of the students' attendance.
Exactly.
Dot
Great.
length.
Yep. So what we're student attendance is the array we want to set. So if we get the length, that will pull back the number of values. Excellent. And then a comma. Definitely not a semicolon. Sorry. Okay. And then how many columns?
If it's vertical, isn't one column?
You got it. Yep. Just one. Perfect. So if we were to debug this now, all we would see is that this is going to come back as an object. So not giving us too much info, but we know we don't have any syntax errors. So now we've got our range, and we just want to call the method set values. So I'm going to pull back this range to set dot, and then in case I forget, here we go. The difference, I use set value and set value. Set values if you just want to set for one cell. Set values if you want to set an array of objects. So what are we going to pass in for the values?
Would the values be what's found in the array, or are we putting in a new set of values?
Well, we want to set the array, so we've already defined the values. So all we need to do, this is easier than that
We just
question.
put like an index.
In this case, we're just going to say student attendance. And this is where Jared had said things get a little tricky sometimes. And sometimes you do need to, I don't know the terminology for that, but put it in a bracket. So let's see. What's the little Google Apps script thing we need to use to make sure it writes back to the sheet while we're in debugger mode? I'm giving a hint.
Spreadsheet app.
Really close.
What's the method?
Method range.
Push.
You got it. Great. So this
So
will.
that's like that's never made sense to me why they call it a flush, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like to me it should have been commit because that's
Mhm.
essentially when you run a function, when the function completes, it will automatically commit all of the changes you just made. But while you're in it, like before it's finished, which is when you're in the debugger, if you want to commit those ahead of time, you need to put in a spreadsheet app .flush.
Okay, so let's run this. So missing parentheses after the argument. Oh,
Semicolon.
that is a mess. Okay. Let's try again. Helpful error message. Okay, so we didn't get an error. That's excellent. If we jump to our sheet,
Hey.
there she is.
Yay.
So that's writing back vertically. And if we had wanted to, so right now these values don't line up, but let's say we'd wanted to write a message based on attendance. When you are pushing to this array, if it doesn't meet, if it doesn't evaluate to what you're trying to push for, then you can otherwise else push blank. So in this case, if we wanted to see this line up, we would say if attendance is less than 90, student attendance push student, else, and I'm just going to grab this, and we would just push a missing value. I'm just going to make sure that's aligned. Save, and then let's clear this out because I'm not going to change anything. Let's run it again. What do we expect to see?
There will be blanks. So you would have student 1, and then if another student didn't have the 90, had greater than 90, it just would be a blank cell.
Perfect. Yep. And so our hope here is that whenever you see a student, it's going to line up to the same row where we got them from. Oh, the suspense. There she is. So, and in this case we push blank, but you could really push whatever. Questions so far? Okay. So then how, let's say we didn't want to write this vertically, but we wanted to set it horizontally on a different sheet.
Yeah, any ideas how we would do that? It's pretty...
We would need to redefine sheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sheet 2.
And then
Great. So let's actually make a sheet 3.
Can we?
Oh.
Would you mind showing us how to create a new sheet?
Yeah.
In JavaScript.
Yeah, this is a good on the fly. Create new sheet. So I'm definitely not sure which class that belongs on.
Is it normal to keep, you see there's the brackets that's right underneath it? Is that?
In
You see?
in here?
Yeah. Do we still, is it normal to create a new sheet within that bracket, or should we just do it like get out of the bracket and start something completely new?
So that's a good question. Yes, actually, we should probably create this outside of the bracket. I'm creating just a run-on function right now, which is the equivalent of a run-on sentence.
But it would work.
So in this case, it will work if we either pass in what we've already defined as a parameter to our new function, or we redefine it. So the one thing is, variables that you define within a function can't automatically be read in the next function. You need to pass it in.
They can't be read if they're not global though.
So if we set it as global, then that would work.
Okay.
Yeah. So if we took spreadsheet app out, put it at the top and set it as global, it would work in all functions. Okay, so function, create new sheet. And no reason why I should be doing all the work here. So as I said, I'm not positive which class. I immediately opened up the, I think what Jared had introduced in the beginning, but I'll also post this to Slack or pop it in the syllabus. This is the app script API, so any class you want to access, you would come here and it lists out all the methods. So it's the same as if we were to call spreadsheet in here. Let's do spreadsheet app dot. So spreadsheet is the class, and by typing in that dot, I'm able to see all of the methods, all the things we can perform on this spreadsheet app class. So if you want to, you can also just look within here. My hunch is it's within spreadsheet app, but I would need to check. So why don't you take 4 minutes. If you don't have a script editor open, you can just use the one for today, which is what we've been working on, and see if you can write a function that creates a new sheet. Great. Take 2 more minutes.
Christina, what's the little command that you use to fix the indenting?
Indent. Control A and then tab. Tab.
Control A tab.
So Control A will highlight everything. I think that's.
Oh, I see. Tab. I see. Just have everything. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Are you guys done? Dimitri, are you still working?
Oh, I'm done.
Okay. Who wants to share their screen?
I mean, what was the? We just wanted to find a way to start a new sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You want to go for it?
Yeah. Let's see.
Share your screen.
Yeah. That's,
Thank you.
do you see my screen?
Nope. Nope, no idea.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Do you see this highlighted? So what I did was I found a spreadsheet.app, and there's a method to it. Get active spreadsheet, then insert said sheet, and I just typed in sheet another sheet. It's not a formula per se. Well, maybe it is. I'm not sure if this is considered still a formula or not. I mean, not a formula, a function. Is this still viewed as a function, or is this just like a?
So the insert sheet is performed on the spreadsheet class. So what you're doing here, spreadsheet get active, spreadsheet is the exact same what we have on line 5 of your code, which is where we're just giving it a variable name. So in this case, we're calling it SS. So you could do that and say var spreadsheet equals spreadsheet app get active. And then on the next line, you could do like var new sheet equals spreadsheet dot insert another. Both of these work. Sometimes it seems a little easier in the debugging if you've assigned variables.
Get active.
Mm-hmm.
Then var sheet equals SS2
Mm-hmm.
dot insert sheet.
And do you see how this auto added all of those methods that exist on the spreadsheet class? Because by saying spreadsheet get active, you've now defined a variable for that class.
So in more like formal terms, if we look at this thing right here, spreadsheet.app.getActive.insertSheet, this is viewed as the class spreadsheet app. Right?
Yes.
This dot getActive is a method. Would this be viewed as a sub-method to this method, or is it still just viewed as a method? The insert sheet.
Insert sheet is a method on the spreadsheet class.
It's a method on the spreadsheet app, or
Jared,
on
is that?
or on the get active spreadsheet.
So when you chain, so spreadsheet app is a class. It has a method get active spreadsheet, which itself returns a spreadsheet class.
Which itself returns a spreadsheet class.
Yeah. So when you look in the documentation, like Christina, I'm looking at your screen.
Yeah, I pulled up the spreadsheet class.
Yeah, so she's in class spreadsheet. But if you go to spreadsheet,
Oh, I'm just popping this into the syllabus too. Okay. If I go to a spreadsheet app.
Yeah, or maybe I can share it too, I guess. But yeah, no. So you're in spreadsheet app, right? And then if you go to wherever you want to get active, right? The way to understand like this documentation, right? Get active, it returns a spreadsheet, and then if you click on spreadsheet, it shows you all of the classes. So right now we're in the context of like this overarching, like you don't have a spreadsheet yet. You are just like you want to, like you haven't done anything. So spreadsheet has a class called create. So if you wanted to create a brand new spreadsheet, you'd be calling that. That also returns a spreadsheet. So when you call .get active, you're returning the active spreadsheet that is in the context of the code that's running. But if you call .create and give it a name, it's returning that new spreadsheet that you've just created. But in either case, like if you click in spreadsheet, then you have all of the methods that are related at the spreadsheet level. And so when you say get sheet by name, that's going to return a sheet class, right? So they basically just like created classes around all of these different kind of like conceptual units that you interact with. They're all pretty logical. So there's a spreadsheet class, there's a sheet class, and then when you get the range, it's returning a range class. And each of those things has things you can do with it. And the fact that it always returns a class, the way they design these like APIs, means you can chain them together. So that's why when sometimes you'll see like spreadsheet app.getActive.getRange set value. You don't have to set each of those pieces to a variable. The main reason to do so is simply like you often want to reuse it again down the road, like somewhere else in your code, and there's a cost to calling those methods over and over again. So call them once and then reuse it if you can.
And in the documentation, as Jared was saying, under return type, so all of these can continue to be chained if they have another class that can be called. But for example, get column width, this is going to return an integer, and you're done. You can't do anything after that. You can I hope you'll use the integer width, but.
So how does it actually, I mean, so if Dimitri were to run that function, would it actually return the sheet?
Well, let's see. Dimitri, have you run it yet?
I ran it when it was just this. So
Okay.
which one do you want to do? The one when it's concatenated like this, or do you want to do it when it's variables or?
Can you do the second one? Because mine looks like that and it's not doing anything.
Okay. And so Dimitri,
Yeah,
just
yes.
comment out
Yeah.
that. You can just comment it out. Perfect. So just, yeah.
Oh, I forgot to give it a name. Name.
And when you're trying this out, I would recommend running it in debugger mode, just because that way it will highlight the errors.
Name is right here, so it's a new sheet.
All right, this was upsetting.
You want to share your screen?
Well, I thought we would need a spreadsheet app flush, so.
Not if you run it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
So why? Okay, that's probably like a little.
I actually ran it, didn't realize I ran it, and then ran it again and got an error saying that this sheet already exists. So now I'm trying to look at to see if I can find out if it exists, and if it doesn't exist, create it, and if not, don't do anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good little
that's
task.
good.
Can we fix
But
that?
let's fix your
Yeah.
code.
Do you want to share your
Ready?
I'm
screen?
sharing my screen.
Perfect.
I was just killing time.
I did mute my microphone, but other people can hear me anyway, right? The Yeti's big.
Yeah.
Okay. So
The Yeti's big. That's why.
Yetis are big, right? So there's a var ss spreadsheet app dot
Can you
get
share
active. I think I did. Is it not
You
sure?
just have to click on her.
Okay.
So defined ss as get active, or spreadsheet app dot get active, and then I made a variable for a new sheet name, and then their new sheet equals ss dot, and the method is insert sheet. The first argument is the name of the sheet, and the second argument is the index number.
Mhm.
Oh, I don't have a semicolon.
We'll throw an error, but yeah.
Yeah, so one would suggest that I throw in a debugger in here, right? After the flush or before the flush?
After.
I think I know why, Manica.
Why is that?
You're not running the function that you created. You're running my function.
That is some kind of
We press
sensational.
save also.
That just makes my life great.
When you click the debugger, it will save for
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
before.
So I
but
think it might
yeah.
have run twice.
Okay, well then.
So try to create it again and see if it.
Hey!
Hey.
Thanks, Eric. Up top.
Takes a team.
Takes a team to read a button. Awesome. Thank you.
Alright.
Cool. Okay, so now that we all have our new sheets, let's. Where are we? I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again. So let's go ahead and write these values back to our new sheet horizontally. So why don't we start in row 1, column 1, and write that back. 3 minutes. Challenge is on. We need some more time. So you can be doing this either within the function that we had been working in, or writing it as another function. Both work.
Oh, whoops.
Seems like 2 more minutes. If you want a challenge, you can try setting these values in a single cell. So I'd recommend looking up the method on a range that allows you to join them.
Are you waiting for that one? Yeah. Do you want to use this one? Sure. Sometimes you know, just noting. And when that happens, I'm like,
That's awkward.
Okay. Having a little trouble reading the peanut gallery. Are we set to look at some code? Yeah. Do we have a volunteer who wants to share? This one was a little tricky.
Amy's been quiet.
Okay.
So-
This confused me many a time. I am happy to share, but if someone wants to walk through, I think often we learn more.
I had a snag,
Mm-hmm.
but I thought the approach was simpler maybe than I thought it was going to be.
Let's see it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, share your screen.
Okay. Okay. So I thought that the approach was I missed that. And now I'm realizing my error. I thought the approach would just essentially just switch the third and fourth argument on get range, and then push to that range, because it seems like get range was just needed to be a rectangle, and that whether it was vertical or horizontal would just depend on like the range that you're setting the array to.
You're
And
right
then it'll
on
just
that.
push
So-
into the right shape? Like it doesn't.
Yeah. So.
So let's walk through it.
So here,
Do you wanna?
if I just run the debugger
That's so much
Through-
cleaner than I thought.
what
So go on.
through line 22.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not going to be. Okay. Well.
Well, let's walk
Yeah.
through what is the range we expect to see right now? Can you walk us through those 4 parameters?
Yes. Well, I guess it doesn't need to be at the starting at the second row.
It can be like whatever for this case.
So I guess I could just do 1, 1, 1.
Okay, so row 1,
With
column.
the new sheet.
Uh-huh.
And I need to just call a new sheet better.
Good call.
Let me just try that again.
Okay. So row 1, column 1, 1 row, and the length of columns of the array. Perfect.
Right.
So far, looks good. Let's, can you just go down a little? So now that what are you doing on line 24?
So I was going to push the student attendance array to the range that I just set. So we can try that.
Yeah. See what. You're gonna need to, before you see it, you're not gonna see it in the sheet because there's not a spreadsheet app flash. So you can, at this point, you need to just step through the rest of the, continue, click the next button, and that'll just finish execution, and then you'll see this, the results.
I don't want to do that.
So
Well,
you're, in student attendance right now, this is what we've defined up above. So student attendance is the list of values of students less than 90. And you've defined the range to set values. You're then gonna call the method just set values on the range.
I didn't even catch that, but hit the debugger again though before you change anything. I'm just curious.
It didn't throw an error, which is.
No, I think it makes sense that it didn't throw an error, but now
And try to
take a
set
look
value.
at expand your student attendance array. Right, so and then take a look at number 6. Right, do you see like you have this extra thing in there now, right?
Is that because it's set to student attendance at length? Should it be student attendance at length minus 1?
No, it's because you're like look what you're doing on line 23, right? You're doing the same thing you're doing on line 17. So every time you get a student that meets the criteria, you're pushing them into the student attendance array on line 17. And then on line 23, you're also pushing the range. Remember when we said when you say get range on a spreadsheet class, it returns a range class. So you just push that whole like JavaScript, AppScript object into your array of student data.
Oh, right. So at the end of each one, there's this thing range.
So actually, I reverse. So am I saying that I have to do this?
You're really close. So remember when you want to set values to a sheet, you think like big picture to small. So we have our spreadsheet, we have our sheet. You just define the range. Yeah. So we've got our range. So we want to perform on the range.
So we range set
the
set
method
value.
Is yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I killed the punchline, sorry. Instead of push, because push will push values into an array, the method is set values. So it sets the values into that range.
I tried that, but I should actually try that.
I'd recommend deleting the period as well, because then that will show you the options. Oh.
No?
So let's just delete set values. Now put the period, and it should.
I think it's just more stuff after the period. Like I think it needs to be empty, right?
No, it's not like. Maybe in the debugger I can't do it.
Let's.
Okay. For a number.
Yeah, just start.
I would don't leave, and you have a lot of semicolons missing. Sometimes that causes it not to work.
Interesting.
Well, that's interesting. I didn't realize it would just understand that you were going horizontal. I was trying to loop through.
Oh, yeah.
It's really complicated. I'm getting silly.
Okay. So it's not.
Yeah, so it's not a capital S. So the autocomplete's not working, but we'll help you along. Normally that should help you, but it's just lowercase s.
You got it. There we go.
And then, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, so now.
So maybe try it.
Oh, yeah. I would recommend the spreadsheet app flush. Okay, so this error is really helpful. It's telling us the height was 6, but it's expecting 1 based on.
You're telling it. Yeah. So the expected range is one row high, right? But the data you're trying to write, it's saying has a height of 6.
And if you expand student attendance length, you can see that.
Yeah, so like if you, Eric, can you describe like each of those outer arrays, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like those 6 arrays, like what does each of those represent? In terms of like the spreadsheet. This is like the most confusing thing to me. But
I fully agree.
But just to just get
Those
your
represent
head.
a student that has less than 90% attendance.
Right, but remember when we talked about like so it's a nested arrays,
right?
Like they correspond to rows and columns in the sheet.
That's one cell. Each array, like student 1, 85, 2, for example, that's a single cell. Or is that 3 cells that's going to be taken up with those values?
Well, we only wrote. Okay, so what I want to do though, I think to help my debugging, what if I just call the var L equals student attendance.length,
Sure. And then put the debugger there, because I think maybe that's. This will help me probably maybe get some intelligence. So L is 6. And
Which is good.
Also, student attendance has a length of 6.
Yep.
So,
So here's a way to maybe, like, let's open up data, right? Like scroll up to where you define data. Right, so data represents the data in the spreadsheet as it existed, like that initial chunk of data, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just like conceptually look at like how it looks in the debugger, right? Like if you think of, like, go look at the sheet and think of like how many rows and columns there are in the original data set. So like literally open the sheet and go to sheet 1, right? So like how many rows and how many columns?
So there are, well, we're starting at, there's 11 rows and 3 columns, but we only start at the second.
Right, so 10 rows of data,
10 rows of data,
and 3 columns.
yeah.
And then go look at that data object and see how that's represented.
So right now, its data is represented as 3 columns in a row.
Right, so each of those, the thing you just expanded, like if you close it real quick, right? Like there's 10 of those, right? Each of those array, like the whole data itself is one big array, but then inside of it is a bunch of arrays, and one at the outer level, one each per row, right? And then inside that, there's one item per column. Does that make sense? So then, like, if you think about the shape of the data you're trying to write back, if you only want to write one row of data, right, you should really only have one, right? You should only have students, I forget what the variable is called, student attendance should really only have an inner array, a single inner array, right, 0, and it should have a length of 1. Does that make sense?
Okay.
This is really confusing, I know. Like, it's hard to explain too.
But I think looking just how we looked at the data, like conceptually helped me to understand it. Like we want to write it back that same way. So we need to put it back into that array format.
Okay.
You need to get the array that you're going to write into the right shape before you can write it. And right now, it's still a vertical array, right? Like right now, it's still basically an array of, right? You filtered it, but what you have is an array of 6 that represents 6 rows of data, 1 column wide.
So what I basically need to do is almost represent it in a similar way as data, the top level array, where you're saying like they need to appear like as like data appears right here at the top level?
No, where your cursor is, that's like a summary of all the data within data array, so that's a little bit confusing too. But the point is at the top level there, you only want, when I say top level, I mean like you click the plus sign next to data and it expands and there's 9 items in there. That's the top level of each of those. And then right, each one of those represents a row. So the equivalent for student attendance, if you only want to write back 1 row of data, you should only have 1 of those arrays. Right now you have 6.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So right now you have 6 rows with a student name in each row, but really you want 1 row with 6 student names in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And the way to fix it is easy. Conceptually it's challenging, but you want to mimic the way we've been pulling it in for 1 row, which I don't want to take the punch line.
Yeah, and I don't want to like, is it useful to just know how to do it at this point, or like, because I feel like this is like the kind of thing you've said this 60 times.
Yes,
maybe? Like, okay, so on line 17, right, every time you find a student's name, right, if you think about this, right, you're looping through data, and at this point, student attendance, say you have, it's your first time hitting line 17. Student attendance is an empty array, but you need a nested array. So the way Christina wrote this originally is she's pushing in an array and a value at the same time, right? So on line 17, it's student and it's inside of an array. Like she's creating a row and pushing one piece of data into that row all at the same time. But so instead of doing that, you're going to just delete the outer array. Just delete the brackets from around student. Not there. That's fine. On line 17.
To delete this?
Yeah. Right now check your debugger. Run the debugger again. Right. Okay. That.
So it didn't.
Okay.
So
this
the
is
way I
this is
think
actually
it
more
was
challenging
different.
than I thought.
If you just wrap student attendance when you're setting the values in a bracket, it will land. So you want to. I would recommend still. I think that's what I have found the best way to manipulate. So if you were to put back in line 17 those square brackets, so you're still pushing it in, but when you then go to set the values, you want to tell it of all of these, we're actually going to make it one row.
So
It should work.
Should work, not as is, you need to.
So it is this. Well, the way it is written right now, there's a few ways we could do this, and I know we're late, but like at this point, all you have to do is write. When you scroll down, this is different than what Christina's saying too. If you scroll down to where you set values, if you just wrap that in an array, I think that'll do it. So on line 25, put an array around that.
Mm-hmm.
These are all like kind of different ways of doing the same thing. Now, if you just run this instead of debugging it, I'm pretty sure that'll. Okay. Yeah.
Yay! Yay!
So what I had you do was basically it turned student attendance into a single row of data. I don't know. This is all like really hard to explain. I feel like a good homework assignment would be somebody else to like wrestle with this and explain it next week, because it's like I remember it taking me a long time.
It took me a really long time, but it's something that if you're going to work with JavaScript, this is like a fundamental thing.
Particularly JavaScript in spreadsheets, because it's just the way, it's just conceptualizing how a spreadsheet translates to an array. It's an array of arrays, and it's just tough.
Okay.
Cool.
More practice with, I guess maybe the opposite would be to push it into, to start with pushing it into a single row, and then how do you go the other way? Into a column. Or how do you, maybe one way to think about it as well is how do you grab a single row of data from a spreadsheet and then transpose it into a column?
Yeah, I think that's you should solve that problem, and then if you really want to like prove to yourself that you understand it, is take like a 3x5 array and turn it into a 5x3 array, because that's even more complicated than what we just did. And I was like, while you guys were doing something else, I was trying to figure that out because I thought I might have to show that, and I was like struggling, but it took me a while because it's just like it's not that easy.
Eric,
Anyway.
could you share that copy, your copy, now that it has the working piece in it?
Sure.
Like you just invite us onto the...
Yeah, I can do that. I will call this Eric's copy and I'll share it myself.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
Right.
Office hours tomorrow, 10 to 11.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.